Hello, I am Lord Phantom, and this is the beginning of a new video series revolving around the so-called longest fanfic ever, called Loud House Revamped. This is basically the Sonic-Chew or the Pooh's Adventures of the modern day, except instead of Sonic and Pokemon along with other franchises, it is the Loud House and other franchises. Okay, I'm not gonna do the Cinna Snob impression, but you know what I mean. We're getting into the territory of stupidness. If anyone does not know about Loud House, it is basically about an 11-year-old boy named Lincoln who lives with 10 sisters in Royal Woods, Michigan. Their names, from oldest to youngest, are Lori the oldest, Lenny the fashion person, Luna the rock star, Luann the jokester, Lynn Jr. the athlete or jock, Lucy the goth kid, Luna the handyman, Lola the pageant queen, that did not age well at all, Lisa the scientist, and Lily the baby. Almost forgot something. Lincoln, the ordinary boy. Yeah, they have one character trait and that's basically it, for the most part. They get up to wacky adventures and so forth. Now, I never watched Loud House that much and thought it was okay. I heard the fan base is very weird and very uncomfortably obsessed with the main character, which brings me to Loud House Revamped itself. This thing is like 20 Bibles stuck together and then some. There are fanfiction that are shorter than this, but still pretty long. And yeah, there are people that can make fanfiction that long. Not a shocker. Apparently the author of this big fanfiction thing is James Dean Knutson, or JD for short, who lives somewhere in Colorado or something. Yeah, this guy put his info online. Not a shocker. JD is a 40-something-year-old man obsessed with the Loud House, much like an obsessed fanboy that's a teenager. Much like Sonic-Chew, JD starts to insert himself into Loud House Revamped, eventually replacing Lincoln as the main character. Unlike that horrible fan comic, JD ages himself down to 15 years old, but it is still weird for him to do so, but I get it. It's probably better that he ages himself down to 15 and him being 30 or something. That'd be weird. Very weird. Loud House Revamped is going to be a very, very long fan fiction to go over. And I'm just going to summarize the chapters and make my own points, as reading this damn thing will take forever. And I will summarize the plots as well. So, yeah. I'll also be doing 10 chapters at a time, so this will go faster. I think this will be done once a month or twice a month, depending on how I feel. And also in preparation for this fanfiction, I've watched some episodes of The Loud House so I can understand what the hell is going on. And it's basically noise to me. It's fucking noise. Noise that nobody needs. Now, let's start with... The prologue starts like this. The infinitely vast spaces of space. A place of infinite... More like an infinite cringe. Trust me, this is only gonna get worse. Basically, this intro is like Globs of Doom, but it got its budget cut even more. Also, the narrator goes on about planet Earth and how beautiful it is. And then the evil Aku burst out of the ground and... Wait a minute. This is the wrong script. Instead, evil monsters and evil creatures appear and start destroying everything. Until our team of protagonists come onto the screen... No, not on the screen. Come onto the scene after killing an alien monster. This team is called Team Loud Phoenix Storm. Okay, that name is badass for a hero team anyway. Then it cuts to an estate somewhere in Royal Woods where Team Wild Phoenix Storm is at. They fly out of the estate with Riley Anderson from Inside Out, Hercules from Disney's Hercules, I presume, Lincoln Loud and almost all of his sisters, JD and his family, and with reformed villains and superheroes. Okay, this is way too many characters, even for me. They also have futuristic technology from millennia in the future, which is really insane. But okay. The fanfiction brings up Nicole from Archie Sonic for some reason, but I think she's an AI character if I remember right. The narrator then goes on and on about how awesome the team is. Then this comes up. We are battling all kinds of monsters that were destroying the cities, terrorizing the areas around us, and ruining lives everywhere. We were tearing bad guys and throwing them in jail, or killing them. It then basically ends Batman style with Team Wild Phoenix Storm on top of a building with a fiery phoenix in the background. And the building collapses because of how many people there is on the roof of it. Now, what do I think about this chapter? It is okay, but not bad. It gives me signs that JD, his self-insert, is going to be a big, huge character in this adventure of sorts. There are a lot of spelling and punctuation errors, but it is not bad. However, as we go further into the Sonichu wannabe, we're going to see a lot of problems start to form. And this starts with... The second chapter begins with JD, the self-insert, moving from where he lives in Colorado to Royal Woods. He then checks out the neighborhood until conveniently running into Mr. Lincoln Loud. I'm just going to call the self-insert JD in order to make it less confusing for people. So JD apologizes and introduces himself to Lincoln and immediately flaunts his wealth, making Lincoln impressed. Lincoln then decides to introduce this person he just met to his entire family, including an OC that is stolen, by the way, named Leanie. Oh, we'll get to her eventually. However, they are very welcoming for some reason, and that is kind of off. What, does JD have a spray that he sprays onto people, making them obedient to him alone? That's kind of creepy. But wait, it only gets stranger. This random self-insert knows what the Loud sisters like, which is very suspicious and leads me to think that JD either spied on them somehow or just used one of his not mentioned yet powers. The characters have only positive reactions to meeting JD and no negative ones whatsoever. Similar to Sonichu. Then this happens. You live in the old Morbuck's estate? Yup. Yeah, Princess Morbucks was the worst, spoiled, rotten, and snobbiest child ever known here in Michigan. No, they live in Townsville, unless Townsville themselves got so sick of them that the Morbucks had to run out of town, basically. Also, this is said. She went to her school at Royal Woods Elementary, and after she went on several crime sprees, she became homeless. All their assets were seized and they were evicted and forced to live on the streets. I hate people like that. She got what was coming to her. Yes! Yes! Finally! Someone took that brat and her family down a peg! Yes! 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 Sorry about that. I really hate Princess Morbucks. Really, really, really hard. Even though she's a spoiled brat and she's a fictional character. That is what she's supposed to be, and I get it. So let's move on. Anyway, good job, JD. Good job for putting that in there. The punctuation and spelling errors are still there, but it's okay. However, these might be the only good chapters for a while, if never again. We will have good chapters, But after this, it is all downhill from here. Left in the Dark is the first episode of season 1, and it revolves around the electricity in the house going out, and it's up to Lincoln and his sisters to fix it without JD. That's supposed to be the plot anyway. Unfortunately for us reading Revamped, JD shoves his self-insert in and Lainey the stolen OC, making this episode even more boring. Lincoln has now become friends with JD's self-insert since the last chapter and trusts him. Character development, I guess? Lincoln and JD want to watch their favorite show, ARG. Yeah, that's literally the name. It is also called the Academy of Really Good Ghost Hunters. We also get our introduction to Clyde, Lincoln's best friend, who has a crush on the older sister of the Loud House, Lori, and acts very weird around her. Seriously, he acts like a robot that is malfunctioning whenever he is around her, or bleeds his nose out. I don't think that's funny, but very weird for a kid's show. Anyway, Lincoln gives his sisters, who have only one trait, something to be distracted by while he watches his favorite show in the normal version. In Loud House Revamped, JD helps Lincoln with this and laughs with Luann whenever he can. That's annoying. Please stop. JD rips off a joke from the SpongeBob episode Crabborg, and Luann laughs. As I said before, this gets annoying really fast, and will continue to plague the fanfiction up until chapter 40 or 45-ish. I'm not really sure. When Lincoln and JD think they're done, Lucy appears and says, "Too bad, I was here first." They help her to get a black and white TV upstairs so that they can watch their favorite show. However, after doing so and plugging in the TV with a bad plug, the house loses electricity, starting the actual plot. The Loud sisters get confused, and Lincoln says it was because of him and JD that the power went out. Lori only blames Lincoln and excludes JD from being blamed, because of course, he's an angel. JD defends Lincoln from Lori, and 10 of the sisters discover that Luann suddenly has the power to glow. Lisa says it's because of the cookie she made, and Lisa admits that she put the DNA of a jellyfish into the cookie, a bioluminescent jellyfish. After the sisters bicker back and forth like siblings usually do, Lori decides to take Luann into the basement to turn back on the power. Unfortunately for the cast, Luann stops glowing, and Lincoln decides to go into the basement first, not before calling his creep of a friend over through a walkie-talkie. Clyde comes over and sees Lori, but in the normal version of the episode, Clyde just goes back to his house. In Loud House Revamped, JD snaps him out of it, and Clyde stays. I'm gonna say something else about JD's self-insert. Is stupid catchphrases, like cheese logs and whatever else in the chapters. They really have nothing to do with the episode, but give the insert something to stay. Also, JD brings out his green lightsaber to light the way to the basement. So JD is a Jedi now. In the previous chapter, he used the Force to put Lily to bed, so that's not really a shocker. Yes, he really did that. When the Loud children, Clyde and JD, are finally in the basement, they encounter the pet cat scratching on something, the pipes moving, and then Lily emits a fart. JD then says this: "I'll have to change her later." JD, you're not part of the family. You're just a friend, okay? Okay? You're not a babysitter. You're not a sibling. Okay? Self-insert. Now let's move on with our lives. Also, Lincoln fights laundry because he thinks it's a ghost. He's just a kid after all, so I'll give him a pass. The circuit breaker comes back on due to Lori in the normal version of the episode and JD in the revamped version. Then Lincoln finds out when he gets back to the living room that he missed his show, but the sisters remind him that they had an adventure, so the episode ends. Not before Lincoln learns to be grateful for everything he has. Okay, what do I have to say about this? This chapter, obviously. The script for this fanfiction is obviously ripped from the original Loud House, but adding or taking things away from it. And there's going to be a lot of this going forward, I think, until later chapters, so we're going to have to see what happens. I think that Left in the Dark in its original format was okay, and the revamped version is unnecessary. Mostly because of JD and Laney and shit like that. My god. I would do it once in a while. And I'll probably be saying this more and more often as we get deeper and deeper into the fan fiction. I think the next chapter of this is a way better first chapter than Left in the Dark. So let's move on to Heavy Meddle is the third episode from the first season of the Loud House, and this revolves around Lincoln being bullied. The sisters meddle in a situation that they probably would only make worse. That's the plot anyway. It starts with Lincoln basically getting bullied, and JD comes in having some character growth, saving Lincoln from the bullying. However, in the original episode, there's no JD to save him, so he just gets bullied. I like this edition of JD protecting Lincoln because it's one of the many things I actually like about this chapter. JD, Clyde, and Lincoln walk home from school and talk about how he's going to confront his bully at 3:30 in front of his house. Lincoln pulls off a note that says Lamo off of his head that also had gum attached. What? Did I accidentally watch Rocket Power or something? Because it sounds like Rocket Power to me. He then goes on to explain that his sisters also make things always worse. We then cut to a flashback of the sisters trying to help Lincoln, but then Lady brings soup and accidentally burns him down there. That really has to hurt, especially with coffee. Lincoln says that was only for a paper cut. That's typical sibling behavior, nothing bad. Clyde advises Lincoln to get out the gum with smooth peanut butter. Wouldn't that make it worse? Anyway, Lincoln goes inside of the house and actually does a pretty good gag about the sister NATO. It is very funny and thank God JD did not change it, or it would have been worse. Lincoln accidentally steps on a squeaky toy near Lily and has another good gag with the shh noise. JD also does the same thing as Lincoln. Now that joke's ruined. Thanks a lot, JD. Then we have Laney the stolen OC again, who's more the straight man in this fan fiction, but that'll quickly go away in future chapters. Because when you hit about chapter 20, there is no more straight man in the fan fiction. Laney, Lincoln, and JD have a conversation here that isn't in the original episode. They talk about how the other sisters meddled with Laney's problem of bullying and it backfired. Tells me this happens a lot in the Loud House, but it's a sitcom, so pretty much that does happen. Laney tells Lincoln that the peanut butter is in the fridge, and Lincoln and JD go on their merry way. The conversation is not in the original episode, so this is the revamped exclusive. Lincoln and JD get to the kitchen. Lincoln and JD get to the kitchen but encounter Luna, and JD says this. Rock on the way. When Lincoln finally gets his hands on the peanut butter jar, it is empty. Lincoln gets upset that it is empty, but JD says it is a bad habit of people. He then proceeds to throw the whole thing out, and not caring what happens next. Imagine you are a parent trying to get that spare peanut butter jar out of your fridge, and you discover that it is gone, but later you talk to your son and he says, a friend threw it out? You'd be pissed at your kid for letting that happen. Lincoln gets a plan B by using the scissors from his parents' room However, when he gets them, Luann does another one of her stupid jokes, and JD laughs along with it. When Lincoln gets up the stairs, his parents tell him to take out the trash. JD does it instead because he's so trusted. And outside, Lainey asks JD if her desk lamp is in there, but JD tells her to check in her room. JD also takes the time to get Lenny to try out the trash lead hat thing. Lincoln originally did this in the episode, but JD replaced him for this part. JD rushes up back to Lincoln's room and sees Lincoln talking to Lisa. Lisa says that she's not getting involved, which is a total lie. Lo and behold, the sisters find out and start judging before they know the situation, because they are kids we are talking about here. Even so, they should know some things about not butting in and making things worse. The sisters give him advice about how to confront the bully until they find out it is a girl. Now, all of a sudden, they're saying, it is because she likes you. No. I'm sorry, but that's not how romance works. You have to at least know the person or like the person first. And then maybe be a friend, and maybe be a girlfriend, okay? It's just simple. It's simple logic, okay? Very simple logic. Anyway, after the three stooges go into the bathroom to calm down, Lincoln calls Clyde, who reinforces the stupid myth of she's bullying you because she likes you. Eventually, Lincoln gives in and goes to see Ronnie Ann outside at 3:30. JD comes out to explain the situation, but Ronnie Ann throws the first punch. JD blocks the punch like an anime character, and then JD goes on a long rant about how bullying is wrong. Ronnie Ann cries and then explains everything about why she's bullying Lincoln. I will give JD this. The ending in Revamped is better than the original, but JD being absent from this would be a good plus. Also, JD is a literal angel from heaven, and everybody doesn't question this, like it is totally a normal thing. In the original ending of this episode, it was worse. Lincoln gets a black eye for kissing the bully because the bully hates him. But no, it turns out the bully does really like him by giving him a ribeye steak to heal his black eye. That was not a good ending at all. But hey, at least JD got a better message across. The message is good and sustained overall, and he had actually fixed the episode a little bit. So, good job. Before we go to the next chapter, enjoy a gag made by me. So, what do you think of my awesome angel wings? I don't really know what I'm seeing here, and
Dios, quita
ista
dimino de nostros.
The people here. Oh, come on, Miss Loud, it ain't that bad. Girls, hold them down. I'm gonna get the holy water. Ugh. Oh, crap. Lincoln, help me. Please, help me, Lincoln. The Butterfly Effect is the 24th episode of Season 1 of the Loud House. But why go out of order? This does not make sense at all, but since it's fan fiction, I'll let this slide. This episode revolves around Lincoln accidentally destroying one of Lisa's experiments with his yo-yo and thinking of the worst consequences possible. It begins with Lincoln showing us his yo-yo tricks, having Charles the dog come in, thinking it is about him and not the yo-yo. I think this gag is funny for what it is, especially in context. Lincoln, when he fails a yo-yo trick, accidentally sends a yo-yo flying into Lisa and Lily's room. Lincoln, when he fails a yo-yo trick, accidentally sends a yo-yo flying into Lisa and Lily's room, causing the equipment to become broken. Lincoln goes into a panic once entering the room, and Lainey comes in, telling her brother to confess. In the original episode, that was Charles' thing, but it still is kind of here in Revamped, especially there because of more people telling Lincoln to come clean. We then go into Lincoln's imagination, with Lisa being angry at him, while a satanic choir plays in the background. Okay, does it make sense? Lincoln then stupidly removes the evidence from the scene of the crime. It starts a butterfly effect when one chemical touches another chemical, causing the explosion that almost takes off the roof. JD sees the explosion, rushing into the house to see if his friend is okay. This obviously didn't happen in the original episode because it just goes to the next scene. It then goes back inside to Lisa's room where Lisa herself doesn't understand what happened. JD and Lenny give their 2 cents, but Lisa says that science is a fickle mistress. Lori, while talking to Lenny about the new hole in the wall, discovers a frame with a signed photo of Bobby in it. Lori talks about Bobby forgetting the 88-day anniversary because of giving her socks. She then declares Lenny is no longer her sister and marches away angrily, not before Lincoln pretends to be the fool. Everything okay after that unexpected and totally random explosion I know nothing about?
This is totally not gonna backfire on me whatsoever.
After that, Lainey gets hit by a shelf, knocking her out. JD once again butts in and says that they had to get her under Lisa's bed.
Yeah, I think they knew that, JD. You didn't have to tell them, like, immediately, okay? It's common sense for that to happen.
Anyway, Lenny becomes immediately smart, and Lisa becomes depressed that she is not the only smart person around anymore. JD cheers her up a little bit, but this doesn't stop her from giving up. Charles growls at Lincoln because of him not telling the truth and does his business on the couch. After that, Lynn comes in, angry, saying that she's no longer in sports because of failing school. Lincoln asks if Lisa still tutors her, but no, she works at a gas station now.
Isn't Lisa like 4 years old at this point? Isn't that illegal or something? Or am I missing something here?
Lynn gets so upset that she kicks the soccer ball so hard into Lola's nose. Lola looks into the mirror and says that her pageant career is over due to her being hideous. Lainey and Lincoln decide to use the bikes to get the flips, while JD flies like Superman. Another superpower for JD. Wonderful. Lincoln was the only one that went to flips in the original episode because JD and Lainey don't exist. They make it to flips to see Lisa working there. Lincoln obviously asks why she is doing this. Lisa says that Flip is the only one that hires 4-year-olds with no experience. Lincoln says to Lisa that Lynn needs her, and Lisa responds with, "Why don't you get Mrs. Smarty Pants to help her?"
That is a fact. But we soon see why, because when he made a car run on grape juice or whatever. Okay, I think we get the point now, especially with Lenny being smart. But we finally get to the man, the myth, the legend, the scumbag, the person as bad as Mr. Krabs, Flip.
Hey, Chatty Cathy, back to work.
I didn't expect Flip to be an old man, but a middle-aged man at the very least, but hey, at least I researched the episode.
JD actually comes in to defend Lisa and Flip throws a tantrum over it. He then says,
She belongs to me! What the hell is wrong with you, man? Calling someone else's kid your property? You're a scumbag!
Lincoln then gets a call from Charles that Lola is trying to move out. Then the Three Stooges run back to the Loud House to see what is happening. Okay, the Three Stooges are JD, Lainey, and Lincoln. Okay, that's what I'm calling them from now on. For a while, anyway. Lola is seen putting clothes into a suitcase, but the pile is too big. JD then tries to be the 1960s Robin, but fails spectacularly. Jumping knife blades, Batman! Lincoln tries to stop Lola and fails. Lena's now in the plastic bubble. Luna becomes a rock star. Obvious. Lainey gets angry, and Lori dates Clyde. Luann becomes an activist who releases all the animals in the house. And then Lincoln says, "Boo-hoo, what happened to my family?"
Well, that is sort of on you, Lincoln, for not telling your sister what's up right away. Hey, at least the butterfly effect lives up to its name, I suppose. But wait, it gets better.
The animals chase around Lincoln and JD for a bit, but then they stop to watch the TV with Lincoln and JD. They have a WTF look on their faces as Luna is seen tearing up a hotel room for a breath mint. A breath mint! Okay? Jesus Christ. JD then references an event in 1967 about the Who's Keith Moon for trashing a hotel room in the Holiday Inn. Okay, that makes sense. But how does a 15-year-old know that? I guess the parents must have told him or something. Luann also changed herself to a redwood tree, and honestly better than the other activists spilling tomato soup on famous paintings. By the way, Flip gets robbed by Lynn Jr. and Lola, and it switches to a scene that references Thelma and Louise, a 1991 film about two women running away from the law because one of them killed a man that was trying to do things with one of them. JD then references it, and this makes Lincoln even more upset.
Wow, JD. That's very nice of you to upset your so-called friend.
Anyway, the reporter asks the same question I was asking a while ago about a 4-year-old working at a gas station. Flip, being the scumbag that he truly is, promotes his gas station and then covers the camera. JD then has a brilliant idea, which is to report Flip to the Michigan Better Business Bureau, which is honestly a good idea at this point. But this is a foreshadow that will happen to Flip in the future. Lucy comes out of nowhere, and Lincoln is relieved to see that she's still normal until she opens her mouth to reveal fangs. She says that she was bitten by Lana's vampire bat and is excited to be a vampire. Lucy then turns into a bat and flies off. Lainey is on the couch, but she flies up, revealing that she has the power of flight now, along with super strength. She says that she was looking for Lily and then she slipped into some chemicals, getting powers. Lainey and Lincoln hug, and they go up to Lisa and Lily's room, just to find out she's turned into a giant baby. Now, the ending is different than in Revamped, so I'm going to start with the original ending. In the original ending, it just turns out to be a daydream that Lincoln is having about what possibly can happen, and Lincoln tells Lisa what happened. Lisa reveals that she was doing one of her experiments anyway and forgives him. Clyde and Lori are seen riding a bicycle with a flag with the words, "Got married," and right off screen. Okay, Revamp's ending reveals that the episode did happen, and Lisa saves the day by turning Lily back to normal. She reveals that Flip is a terrible boss, and we already knew that. When Lenny, Lisa, JD, and Lincoln clean up the spills, Lincoln confesses to Lisa, and Lisa does seem annoyed but is grateful. The other Loud siblings get back to the Loud House by their own means, and basically apologize to Lincoln for acting crazy. Lynn Jr. and Lola are officially criminals in this fanfiction too, so keep that in mind for later chapters. JD also flaunts a new superpower, the ability to control water. Lincoln learns a lesson about not hiding the truth, and JD vows to steal blood from a blood bank for Lucy since she's a vampire now.
Our main character, everybody.
Oh my god, this chapter was a headache for me to get through. And well, it's not going to get better. At least I got to see what Flip actually looked like and did my research. Even though I hate the butting in of JD, sometimes it is necessary, but most of the time, it is really annoying to fucking read. Well, the next chapter is not going to be a long one, because it is a very short one. Now let's get on to... This chapter is a little more unique compared to the previous ones, since it takes place during the latter half of the episode. The Sweet Spot is the 9th episode of Season 1, but like I said before, it doesn't focus on the entire episode. Lincoln tries to find the perfect spot in the van, but makes deals with his sisters, excluding Lainey. Neither is JD in this episode because at least it is 11 different people to keep track of. Also, from what I've seen of Len Jr. in this episode, I can understand why people do not like her at all. The sisters are reasonably upset at Lincoln getting the sweet spot and then start acting crazy for the sweet spot. Yes, they are kids, but they're kids. Eventually, Rita, their mother, gets angry enough to cancel the trip, and the lesson is that you can't control anything, especially in a big family. Lincoln starts another plot to get the sweet spot, but on the couch. That's the original version anyway. The revamped version of this is the same, but JD resolves with his new Professor X power, reading minds. Everything goes back to normal, but Lori, Lola, and Len Jr. are grounded for being nuisances. Everyone else is now A-OK to go on the trip because most of the Loud siblings are not at fault somehow. The alternate ending is okay, but I think personally the original ending in Lesson is better. No need to reward bad behavior with a road trip, JD. Anyway, back to this chapter. Punctuation and spelling are still god-awful, and don't worry, this is going to be very common as we move into more chapters of this fanfiction. Lincoln and JD are still besties, by the way, and go on the trip to Grand Venture Park, where the next chapter takes place. Raw Deal is the 42nd episode of Season 1 of The Loud House, and it revolves around all the Loud siblings taking a day trip to Grand Venture State Park. That's the original episode, but instead, JD, Lainey, Lana, Lucy, Lily, Lenny, Lisa, and Lincoln get to go, while Lori, Lola, and Lynn Jr. are grounded from the previous chapter. Why is JD even here? I don't know, he just decided to. Also, this is the chapter where JD's life begins to change even more. We'll get to that part later, but it is a very special moment. The episode begins with Lana being impatient and asking if they are there yet. Lynn Sr. says no, but Lana keeps asking. Lincoln looks to the viewers and says that he's excited to go to Grand Venture State Park and daydreams about the activities. JD thanks Lynn Sr. for letting him be on the trip. Anyway, Lenny says that she's excited to see their grandpa, Pop Pop. Her siblings look at her confused, and she explains that the guide of the park told her. Lincoln corrects her and says that it's a geyser, not geezer. Luna says that she hopes that the geyser will blow, with JD agreeing. Lisa, though, says that the geyser has been inactive for years. Lana then asks if they are at the park yet. When Senior asks her to stop, but Lana insists that Hops, the pet frog, is asking. Rita then tells the Loud siblings and JD to play some card games. After that, Lynn Jr., who is normally not grounded here, would play football, but Rita would say that maybe something less violent would be better. My God, Lynn Jr. is so obnoxious that even JD couldn't deal with her. Anyway, Lainey suggests I Spy, but it goes nowhere. Lucy then brings out fortune cards to tell her siblings and JD's fortunes. Not before saying,
It's Madame Lucy.
There'll be fortunes missing here because of absent Loud siblings. So yeah. First, JD gets told that he'll find love in the park, with JD saying that it is mysterious. Next, Luann is told that she'll be blown away with her telling a lame joke, with Lynn Sr. laughing. Hey, at least he is encouraging her. Next, Lainey is told that she'll encounter something in the forest that'll change her life forever. Lisa then says it's impossible for those fortunes to be true. Lisa, however, is then told she will make a scientific discovery today at the park. She then repeats herself that she can't believe it since she's a woman of science. Yeah, no, that's definitely not true. Lucy then moves on to Lincoln after going over the rest of her sister's fortunes. However, she gasps when she sees Lincoln's fortune. Lucy changes the subject to avoid reading Lincoln's fortune. With a little persuasion, Madame Lucy tells Lincoln that his day will end in tragedy. He then worries about his fortune coming true as the van pulls into a gas station. Lynn Sr. tells the kids to be back in 10 minutes or he's leaving without them.
You're not serious, are you? I get that no one will wait for you in real life, but isn't that child abandonment or something like that? JD, why not butt in here? You could have done so much with this, but no, you decided to focus on the little details that didn't really matter. Lost opportunity here and wasted potential. That's what I say. Blech.
After that stupid line, Lisa asks if Lincoln is coming, but Lincoln says no. JD, along with Laney, tells Lincoln it'll be okay. In the original episode, he got out of the van by himself. After the Three Stooges get out, they see fortunes becoming true, like Luann being blown away. JD, along with Lynn Sr., helps Luann up, and then Lynn Sr. makes a dad joke.
Oh, sorry, sweetie. Your dad is an airhead. Unless we are talking about Laney or the candy airheads, your joke is lost on me.
Lucy then appears to the siblings and startles them like she always does. She reads Luann's fortune again, and the rest of the siblings, except Lisa, gasps in astonishment. Lisa then repeats again that it is a coincidence, and Lucy says that we will see. JD then runs into Mr. Universe. No, not that Mr. Universe, just a generic character that is Russian. JD asks if he could get a picture of Mr. Universe, and surprisingly, he is okay with this. After getting Mr. Universe's picture, Lucy informs JD that Fortune was Lola's, who is still grounded, by the way. JD actually says that he wanted to get Lola something to make it up to her. Then Lenny finds pink boots that she likes and gets a compliment from JD. In the original episode, I think she's just boredom and no JD in sight. Anyway, Lana finds $1 in the toilet. Gross. Lucy once again says that the cards don't lie, and Lisa says it's basically nonsense. Lisa then takes away $1 from Lena and says that she isn't rich, just filthy. Lana takes $1 back from her and says it's about quality, not quantity. Luna gets an extra bag of chips, making her happy, and JD says,
Rock on the way.
Lucy then shows a card of 2 people holding chalices. After that, the Loud family and JD finally arrive to Grand Venture State Park. And as they enter the park, Lisa follows shortly after. She then discovers a giant egg that hatches, revealing an owl with deer antlers. Lisa then goes to the park ranger to show her discovery. The family goes into the caves, but in the original episode, Lincoln stays outside because of the fortune Lucy told. Laney, on the other hand, goes away from the group after seeing a mysterious light come from a mysterious room. When she enters the room, she discovers that the room is covered in plants and at the center is a green emerald diamond. She looks at the diamond in awe and touches it, summoning a tornado of leaves. Moments later, she finds herself outside the cave and discovers that she has plant powers. Her family and JD find her outside the cave and Laney shows her plant powers to them. They gasp in astonishment and JD asks how she got those powers. Laney repeats what I just said, but JD gets a book out of a tote bag he brought, only to discover something and gasps. He discovers that Laney found a diamond of Gaia, and and that, according to legend, whoever touches it will be given plant powers, the ability to talk to animals in flight. She already has flight. I think a demon's been summoned. You know what? I would not be surprised. However, only ones of pure heart can gain these abilities. Yeah, that's bullshit, and you'll see why in future chapters. The family and JD then go to the lake, not before it cuts back to Lisa talking about her discovery to the park ranger. Anyway, in the original episode, Lincoln is too scared to swim because of his fortune. He also insults his father accidentally, thinking he is a monster. In Revamped, though, not so much. God, I swear JD has the power of persuasion. I would not be surprised if he's actually fucking Palpatine's grandson. Instead, we get JD using one of his new powers, mermaid sense.
Is he Aquaman or Willie overpowered?
I guess the latter, because not long after, a mermaid appears out of a fountain of water, causing JD to use his angel powers again, thus unlocking his inner Jesus by walking on water. The mermaid then asks if he's JD, and JD obviously responds that's right, because he's so awesome apparently. The mermaid then speaks of a prophecy of where JD would come to the park and when he would come to the lake, surprising JD. He set this up. He gotta had set this up or something. He's gotta be somebody. JD asks for her name, and her name happens to be Varee. JD asks for Varee to come back to Royal Woods with him, and she says that she would be honored. Varee and JD hold hands, despite just meeting each other, making the Loud family happy. Varee's tail then becomes legs, so she can walk back with JD.
I'm sorry, but love doesn't work that way, JD. It just doesn't.
The Loud family, JD and Varee, go to the gorge with Luann doing a horrible joke again, and JD saying it was good. They then go to the river, fish, and then have a picnic. Lena's stomach then gets upset because of the worms she ate when the family was fishing. By the way, Varee does not appear in the original episode because JD and Lainey are also not there, if that's not obvious. They then go to Lisa's press conference, only to discover that the discovery was fake after the antlers of the owl fall off. The park ranger confesses that he made the doll to get more visitors, but Lisa gets angry that her time was wasted. She then apologizes to the people at the conference because of the discovery being a fake. Then usually in the original episode, Lincoln's fortune is true, but Lisa's isn't. In Revamped, both Lisa's and Lincoln's fortunes aren't true, making Lucy look like a fool. Just as Lincoln and his family, along with JD and Varee, are about to leave, the geyser erupts. However, Lynn Sr. and Rita drive off without JD, Varee, Lincoln, and Laney because of a 5-minute cutoff, but the 4 kids successfully get into the van and leave the park. Anyway, in the original episode, the episode ends with a picture of a fortune card on screen. In Revamped, though, Lisa gets amazed about the Diamond of Gaia, and the Loud sisters go to sleep. There is an epilogue of JD taking Varee to meet his family and friends the next day, not before telling Alpha that Varee is his fiancée.
Dude, don't say shit like that. Unless both parties agree. Seriously, don't say that to anybody. Just don't say it.
Everybody is amused about how good the vacation was, and everything is tied up with a bow. This is more of an original story, but is actually more of an alternate episode in my opinion. A new character has been introduced in this chapter, who is Varee, and she is going to be around for a while, probably until the end of the fanfiction. Our next chapter is more of the same vein. It's going to be this for a long while. So let's move on to Sleuth for Consequences is the 12th episode of Season 1 of The Loud House, and it has the Who Done It plot. The whodunit plot is what people say for who committed which. This involves around something being stuck in the toilet, unfortunately. And Lincoln, along with Lucy, Laney, and JD, have to figure it out. In the original, it's just Lincoln and Lucy doing the investigation. I'm not a big, huge fan of this, but if it can be done properly, then I have no reason to complain. JD and Varee arrive at the Loud House and walk up the stairs to Lincoln's room. They see him in a superhero costume known as A Savvy, the world's savviest crime fighter, according to Lincoln anyway, who was excited for the convention coming up. Lincoln was just talking to the camera in the original episode. He then breaks out his walkie-talkie to talk to Clyde, also known as One-Eyed Jack, A Savvy's sidekick. Clyde says that he will be right over after finishing his costume. Lincoln says that they will meet at 4 to go to the convention and burst out of the room. He then pulls out a deck of cards that spill over the floor and says, "Dang it." JD gives him some advice about practicing and then advises on fixing his costume. JD and Varee fix his costume to look more like A Savvy, and Varee creates a mirror of water to let Lincoln look. Lincoln is happy how the costume turned out and thanks him. It then cuts to outside of Lincoln's room with Lola and the girls about to embarrass him for his costume.
Okay, ladies, once he's out of his room, get ready. Like it is an operation or something. I don't think I like this character very much, because she reminds me of Princess Morbucks from the Powerpuff Girls, but I'm pretty sure that's the purpose in this episode, is for her to be the bratty character and stuff, so yeah.
In the original episode, Lincoln comes out of his room only to get teased for his costume and go to the bathroom, starting the plot of the episode. In Revamped, almost all the sisters except Lola praise him for his new costume, which makes Lola annoyed. Lana, however, nudges her elbow on Lola, making her stop. Lincoln immediately catches on and confronts his sisters about it. Luann confesses along with Luna and Lynn Jr. Luna walks up to Lincoln and says to have a good rockin' time. Lincoln then jumps off the stairs, only to fall into his dad.
He then says, "My back, my leg, my everything," when in agony. While in agony. Well, that's karma for you. Huh? That's real karma. Karma is a cruel mistress, isn't it, Mr. Lynn Sr.?
JD asks Lainey about how control of her powers are coming along. Lainey says that she has full mastery over them and says love is the key as well as concentration. Varee and JD congratulate Lainey on this, but Lincoln comes up the stairs to use the bathroom. However, water gushes out, leading to Lainey asking what happened to the bathroom. JD in response says this stupid line.
So that is what happens when a toilet gushes water. Hello? Einstein. That's what happens, you fool.
Varee says it isn't a pleasant sight, and JD goes to get the sisters, telling them of the situation. The sisters come upstairs and see the horror of once was their bathroom. In the original, they're already upstairs, and all the sisters think that Lincoln did it. In Revamped, Lainey, Lana, Lisa, Lily, Lucy, JD, and Varee don't judge Lincoln, but the other ones do. Lincoln then asks why they think he did it, and Lynn responds with a stupid joke about a Dutch shoe factory. The flashbacks then have Lincoln shoving random shit down the toilet, only for it to become flooded, and Lola comes in and says that she'll tell their dad. And Lincoln says that he didn't do it, and JD of course believes Lincoln, which to be honest, is not that bad. At least he has someone in his corner this time. Lola then says she's gonna get their dad, but she gets trapped in a cage of vines by Lainey. Lincoln gets angry and decides to tell his dad what really happened. Lola Lois says that she will, but Lainey tells her no. In the original, Lynn Sr. is brought up by Lola due to the lack of Marie, JD, or Lainey to stop her, and he grounds everyone because toilets don't clog themselves. However, in Revamped, this goes differently. Lincoln tells Lynn Sr. about the situation with the toilet after talking about his Ace Savvy costume. He immediately questions his son, who denies being the one to do it. JD backs Lincoln and Lainey up about not clogging the toilet, and Lynn Sr. decides to ground every Loud sibling except Lincoln and Lainey. This obviously upsets the ones that are grounded. JD offers the simple plunger to Lynn Sr., but Lana takes it away and busts out a bigger one called Big Bertha, saying that this is the clog that it can unclog. Jesus Christ. Fareed is surprised that Lana is a great handyman, but JD says that is quite normal for her. Lincoln Sr. then repeats that until whoever did the crime confesses, the grounded sisters will remain grounded. The main quartet decide to regroup in Lincoln's room, and they do so, saying they have 10 suspects. Lucy decides to join them after offering a tip. In the original episode, it is just Lincoln getting scared by Lucy and allows her to come on after giving a tip about Lynn Jr. eating spicy subs. Now the 5 protagonist team go around questioning each and every sister about if they clog the toilet. Lynn says not before the big game because she's a sports fanatic. Lisa does have a poop record, but the 1 to 4 a.m. is missing. Gross. Lily didn't do it because she's a baby. Lincoln goes to check if Lori did it, but gets wedgied instead. Marie responds by shooting a jet of water that smells like rotten fish at Lori, and Lori screams that she is wet and smells horrible.
Marie says that the smell will last for a few days. But JD, what your girlfriend did was assault.
Meanwhile, in the bathroom, Lana finds a piece of paper in the toilet and says that the source has to be bigger than that. The piece of paper is thrown out the window as Clyde is riding towards the Loud House, but gets blinded by it and crashes into the van, landing in the tree. Okay, that gag is pretty funny. Back in the Loud House, the main 5 drink cocoa, then move on to Luann, who was just sleep joking. Lenny obviously didn't do it because she's dumb. Lana wants to take credit but can't because she's working on the toilet. Lola says that she didn't do it because it would interrupt her beauty sleep. Luna says she was at a rock concert that night and she is seen chasing her idol on the TV screen. Lana finds something in the toilet and it is a girly book, bringing the whodunit back to Lola. The 5 idiots immediately go back to Lola and question her again. Lola says that the book is too girly for her standards. Lincoln thinks that Lola is telling the truth, while Lucy says she's not.
Admit it. Confess. If you don't tell the truth, your heart will never be set free.
The main quartet then escort Lucy out and tell her to calm down. Lainey then cleans up the mess and goes back to her room, fed up with the bullshit. The Three Stooges not the little Three Stooges though. The Three Stooges answer the door after the doorbell rings, and Clyde explains what happened to him on the way. He gives the piece of paper to the Three Stooges and is led inside by JD. He does this after finding out Lucy is the culprit when they find out the piece of paper has a certain phrase from earlier, which is,
Admit it. Confess. If you don't tell the truth, your heart will never be set free.
The Three Stooges then go to confront Lucy. In the original episode, Lincoln figures it out for himself and leaves Clyde outside without any explanation. Anyway, you get a flashback to where Lucy is seen hiding something, and Lainey confronts her about it. Lucy says that she can't prove it. Back in the present, Lincoln kicks the door open, only to be yelled at by his dad, which is reasonable. The main 3 and Clyde come into Lucy's room, with Lincoln accusing her of being the culprit. Lincoln searches around not finding anything until seeing something in a ceiling lamp. He finds the missing file from Lisa's poop log, and yes, that is still gross. Lucy claims that Lynn Jr. put it there, but her gloomy poster reveals another girlier poster underneath. Lincoln gets upset that Lucy lied to him, but Lucy has a reason. She says that the other sisters would tease her for liking a girlier thing, and she is not wrong. Lincoln asks why she reads it, and Lucy says even she needs a break from the darkness. Why does that sound like a response from Kingdom Hearts, an animated sitcom? For Lucy, though, I can accept this. Lincoln then asks how it got in the toilet. Lucy was reading in the bathroom until she could hear someone coming to the bathroom, so she flushed the book down the drain in order to not get caught with the secret. JD then asks Lincoln if he sleepwalks. Lincoln says that he doesn't know. The main quartet supports Lucy to come clean and that they'll support her. JD then butts in again, saying, "We will tell them." Shut up. The main quartet and Lucy go to the living room to tell the sisters who is actually the culprit. Not in the original episode, though. It is Lincoln that takes the blame, and Lynn Sr. ungrounds the rest of the Loud siblings in order to ground Lincoln. In Revamped, Lucy takes the blame, and she is accepted.
However, I think that Lucy is grounded instead of the other guys because the chapter's not really clear on that. And if it is obvious, then I'm not seeing it.
Anyway, Marie admits that she used her water powers to get revenge on Lori, and the father does not react at all. You know, it is probably better if he didn't. Also, Lola has been grounded for gathering her sisters to tease Lincoln. After JD, Marie, Clyde, and Lincoln come back from the convention winning awards, they go their separate ways. Lincoln and JD are back in Lincoln's room when Lincoln finally perfects his card trick, but Lucy shows up and gives Lincoln a comic book with dark imagery. JD says something to Lucy about making comic books, but Lucy says it isn't really her thing. Unfortunately, in the original episode, Lincoln doesn't get to go to the convention, and JD couldn't have that. Oh no. The episode ends with the toilet clogged yet again, but by Lynn Jr. This chapter was just the same as any of the other chapters, but more lame. It didn't need the extra characters. I think this episode is fine, unaltered, and it just feels wrong. I don't know how to explain it, but it doesn't feel right. Lucy and Lincoln were a fine duo without JD and Marie's help. I think that Lincoln taking the blame is more of what Lincoln should be doing, but at the same time, stand up for himself. Also, JD should butt out of shit. We are starting to see that JD is slowly taking over Lincoln's role in the Loud House. And when he does, things are gonna go literally batshit insane. More insane in the next chapter, which is... Change of Heart is the 33rd episode of Season 2 of The Loud House. Yeah, we're jumping ahead for some reason. Maybe JD thought that nobody would notice and decided to start on rewriting Season 2 episodes. The plot of this chapter is that JD, Barry, Laney, Lenny, and Lincoln try to help Clyde to talk like an actual human being to Lori without him bleeding his nose out. In the original episode, it's just Lenny and Lincoln. This chapter starts with JD, Barry, Laney, and Lincoln in the dining room, eating different types of food, and reading either the newspaper or books when the doorbell rings. Originally, this was just Lincoln eating carrot sticks while reading the book. Lori opens the door while talking on the phone about her new shoes, and Clyde gets Bambi eyes because he is obsessed with her. Clyde nosebleeds over Lori's new shoes, making Lori scream, and Clyde faints, with JD and Laney catching him, but Lincoln did that in the original episode anyway. Lori gets pissed, rightfully so, and says,
Guys, this is the fourth pair of shoes that Clyde's ruined this month.
JD says that Clyde can't help it when he's around Lori. Barry just asks about how many nosebleeds Clyde has had. Flashbacks then happen with Clyde always getting nervous over Lori, and well, they don't disappoint. I do have one question about this, and that is, why would Clyde be in the family van? It makes no sense at all, even for an animated show aimed at kids. Anyway, after those flashbacks and Clyde is put down on a chair, Lincoln makes a remark about wearing red shoes, and Lori growls at Lincoln over it while Lincoln admits it's a bad idea. Typical sibling behavior is what this probably is. JD roars like a bear back at Lori, then apologizes to her. She then gets annoyed and wishes that Clyde can act normal around her, and Lori comes back briefly to say thank you to JD. In the original episode, she just left. Clyde actually says that he wishes too, but he holds a locket with a picture of a startled Lori. I think that this obsession is a little creepy, but it's a childhood obsession more than an adult obsession. Clyde then starts nosebleeding again, but Lincoln grabs 2 carrot sticks to plug his nostrils and puts said carrot sticks in quickly. Laney then says to Clyde that he needs to calm down around Lori, and well, the understatement of the year, folks. Barry then has the brilliant idea to maybe get one of Lincoln's 8 other sisters to help. Lincoln then looks out the window after hearing something. We then get an introduction to Bed Gross, aka Mr. Gross, upset that one of the neighbor's dogs took a number 2 on the lawn. Laney then advises to name all 40 states in alphabetical order because then she forgets what she got mad about.
Well, actually it is 48, but I'll give it a try. Well, I guess Alaska and Hawaii didn't become states in this timeline, so...
Lincoln then smiles and looks back at Clyde to tell him that he found someone to help. It then cuts to Lenny, who's happy to help. And there's a gag where Lenny keeps guessing about what Clyde wants to talk about. Laney and JD do not help the situation at all, and just make the chapter more annoying. Laney eventually thinks it's Lufa's, but Lincoln says that it's Lori that Clyde wants to talk about. Lenny then whispers that she has back knee and the main quartet facepalm. By the way, Lincoln only facepalms in the episode because the other 3 don't exist. Clyde then speaks about wanting to be normal around Lori without having a nosebleed every 3 seconds. Laney then asks if he shoved carrot sticks up his nose. Clyde says yes, and says he even used breadsticks, pretzel rods, and corn dogs. He also says that he should have let the corn dogs cool down first. JD says ouch, which is necessary because I would say the same thing, or anyone else for that matter. Lenny then tells Clyde not to worry as she takes him into the kitchen. Later though, Lori peeks her head from the 2nd floor to see if Clyde is still in the house. However, she only sees JD and Lincoln playing video games. She asks Lincoln if Clyde is still in the house because she's on her last pair of wearable shoes. Lincoln says to not worry about Clyde as he's hanging out with Lenny, and JD butts in saying Barry and Laney are also going to be with them. Lori goes to see it for herself and peeks in to see Clyde and Lenny laughing. She then says it's weird. It then cuts to outside where Lori is practicing golf and narrates to herself when Lynn says, "Heads up," as a frisbee comes by. The golf ball then is swung and lands near a cellar window. We can then hear Clyde explain to Lenny what happens when he doesn't get a nosebleed. Laney explains further that JD snaps him out of it with a finger snap. However, Lori witnesses this and thinks that Clyde doesn't only act like a robot powering down in front of her. The frisbee then hits Lori from behind, which makes her fall down into a hole. Lucy with a shovel tells her to get out of the grave she dug, while Lena notices what happened and sheepishly leaves. A few minutes later, Lori is on the phone with a friend of hers and says to hold on as she needs chips for a story. Lenny and Clyde are back in the kitchen and she tells Clyde of a strategy he can use when all of a sudden Lynn Jr. accidentally throws the frisbee from outside. Damn, she is a menace. This hits Clyde in the nose, making him bleed and instantly get nervous. Lainey asks if Clyde is okay, and Clyde obviously says yes. Lori then enters giggling but hides quickly from the three people in the kitchen.
Lainey then screams, "My shoes!" Well, at least you know how your sister feels now, Lenny.
Lori sees it and then actually thinks that she is free from Clyde. This obviously makes her happy as she goes to the Vanzilla and drives off to get new shoes. Back in the kitchen, Fareed grabs an ice bag for Clyde and gives it to him, thanking her. Lori returns with new shoes and overhears Lenny on her phone talking to Clyde. She feels bad for Lenny because of the obsession Clyde has with her. Lori then overhears about shoe cleaning supplies and also hears Lenny say that Clyde is the most thoughtful person she has ever met. Lori then thinks that Clyde is pretty thoughtful about gifts. The episode shows that Clyde got a star named after her, built a snow angel of her, and got her a teddy bear that says, "I love her forever." After the final flashback, Lori picks up the teddy bear but it wears down.
Then Lori says, "I have to get Clyde back." No, you don't, Lori. He's not your boyfriend. He's not Bobby, okay? He's just a child obsessed with you. You'll learn to get over it someday.
Anyway, Lori then tries everything to get Clyde back, while Clyde tries acting normal. Lemonade, a winter scarf, and a comic of Ace Savvy. Eventually, though, she overhears Clyde and Lenny talking, and this breaks her. She decides if I could look like Lenny, Clyde will definitely have me back. Her sisters get impatient, and Lori opens the door to yell, but her sisters ask why she's trying to look like Lenny.
Lori then says, "I'm trying to win Clyde back."
Her sisters call her out, and she retreats back into the bathroom. However, Lori realizes how stupid she's being and starts arguing with herself like the Green Goblin from the first Spider-Man film. This creeps the sisters out as they just slowly walk away from the bathroom. Yeah, that is reasonably creepy. Back at Clyde's house, Lenny, still dressed as Lori, yeah, that happens at some point in the episode, and Lincoln send Clyde off to the Loud House and have a normal conversation with Lori, while Lori goes to apologize to Clyde. This is like Revenge of the Sith, I swear. Unfortunately, though, Clyde has a salmon attached to his shirt, so the cats chase him. But as Lori opens the door, she sees Clyde, which confuses him. Lori apologizes and hugs Clyde, but he nosebleeds, causing her to scream. There goes the character development right out the window. Anyway, Lori and Lincoln take Clyde inside to the couch, and Lori and Lincoln explain their sides of the story. Fairy, JD, and Lainey give their inputs, and Lori starts fighting with her inner thoughts again after looking at Clyde with joy. Lincoln, however, looks disturbed and asks who Lori is talking to, but Lori says, "No one." Lainey then comes in and says, "Poor Clyde." However, Clyde wakes up and sees two Loris, freaking him out and causing him to act like a robot. JD, on the other hand, stops it by snapping his fingers, and Clyde returns to normal. In the original episode, Clyde just leaves the house acting like that and trips over some trash cans, angering the neighbor.
The chapter ends with Lainey saying, "Boy, this has been one strange day." JD says, "You said it, Lainey."
What did I think of this chapter?
Horrible, horrible lesson being taught here. Oh, you should let the person being obsessed with you be around you and deny being harassed. Yeah, the real world doesn't like that very much. And hell, even some Loud House fans hate this episode. Honestly, I don't blame them one bit for that.
This lesson is a very bad idea. It should have been better. Like having Clyde apologize and say he's getting better. I would end the episode just like that. No nosebleeds and no nothing like that. However, I do like Lori realizing that she doesn't need to get Clyde back, the sisters calling her out, and Lori being relieved. Besides that, JD didn't really need to be there. I would have the self-insert occasionally be in some chapters, just being there. We have one more chapter left for this video, and it is... Not Allowed is the 42nd episode of Season 2 of the Loud House, and our final chapter for this video. The plot of this episode was originally that Lincoln and Clyde try to find Lincoln's real family after his parents act suspicious when answering about his birth story. In Revamped, however, Faree, JD, and Lainey, along with Clyde, help Lincoln. This chapter to me personally is full of questions and not real answers. The Three Stooges, JD, Lainey, and Lincoln are here and are as annoying as ever. So let's dig in. This chapter begins with Lincoln, Clyde, and Lainey looking in the attic for his baby book. However, Clyde comes across Lori's baby book and obsesses over how perfect she was from day one. Lincoln then snaps Clyde out of it and tells him that they're searching for his birth story. JD and Faree then come in asking Lincoln what he's doing. He then says that he has to do a class project about his birth story, and then JD and Faree join in. The gang eventually find Lincoln's baby book, but they find no birth story or pictures, with Faree and JD wondering why. Lincoln talks to his parents about it, while JD, Faree, and Lainey listen from the stairs. Lynn Sr., shocked, accidentally spits out hot coffee onto him upon the request for his birth story because it is not in his baby book. Lincoln wipes off the coffee and tries asking some questions like his weight, when he was born, or what doctor who delivered him. Well, both of his parents can't agree on anything, and Lincoln asks what's going on, and the parents say nothing through gritted teeth. This makes Lincoln and Clyde very suspicious, and they retreat to Lincoln's room. I never had a fucking story do this to me like this.
This also makes me suspicious because there's gotta be something bigger going on here, or the birth story is embarrassing enough that the parents won't put it in there, or they just simply forgot.
The gang come to the same conclusion I do and decide to question Lori first. Lincoln asks Lori about the day he was born, and she says that a car pulled up and the scientist wearing a mask came out holding him. Lincoln and Clyde get confused, but as soon as Lori is nice to Clyde, he acts like a robot, but is quickly brought back to his senses by JD. In the original episode, Clyde just falls over. The gang then goes back to Lincoln's room to discuss their findings. Clyde says the story doesn't make sense, as well as Lainey and JD. Lincoln and Clyde come to the stupid conclusion that he has superpowers from a lab, but Faree, JD, and Lainey say that Lincoln can't have superpowers. However, Lincoln and Clyde decide to test their theory. They first try super strength with a pile of random stuff, but Lincoln falls under the pile screaming. JD lifts the pile of random stuff off of Lincoln, and Faree uses her inner Katara to heal Lincoln. I'm not making this up. Clyde and Lainey get amazed as well as Lincoln, and Faree explains that healing with water is one of her abilities. In the original episode, Lincoln just stays under the heavy pile. Clyde and Lincoln then test super speed, but Lincoln is proven wrong when JD takes off at super speed. JD gets gifts from different countries, and Clyde says to Lincoln that he doesn't think that Lincoln has super speed, and Lincoln says they could check in with Lenny. In the original episode, Lincoln is passed by an elderly woman with a motor scooter. Anyway, we then go back to Lenny's room to see Lenny. She says that the older sisters were waiting to meet baby Lincoln, but then he was carried in by an eagle. Clyde says that maybe Lenny was talking about a beagle, but Lincoln says, how is that better? Then Lincoln and Clyde come to the conclusion that Lincoln is half eagle, half boy. Even Marie and JD are saying that is impossible anyway. Yeah, that's doubtful. Even JD and Laney say that is not possible. Why didn't Lincoln then test if Lincoln has flight powers or even eats like one? But again, they are proven wrong. Laney shows off her flight power again, and then Lincoln throws up a worm after trying to eat it. Also, JD throws up along with Lincoln into the toilet after Clyde wants to test if he's half beagle. The gang then goes back to Lincoln's room and talks to Luna about Lincoln's birth story. Luna says that the parents stepped out of the car holding baby Lincoln, the men in black surrounding the house and talking into their watches. Lincoln and Clyde then come to the conclusion that Lincoln is some type of alien and that the men in black were the men in black, bringing him to his parents. JD says if that were true, he would have been born at Area 51 or another planet. In the original episode, Area 51 is not mentioned, and it's cut to Lincoln and Clyde testing their theory in front of the bathroom door. JD says something about people with superpowers coming from alien planets, but that can't be right. Static shock is an example of that not being the case. Lincoln tries to open a door with his mind powers, and when the door opens, it is revealed to be Lana that opened it. JD then brags about being a Jedi by saying that he could open doors with the Force.
Yeah, we know that you're a Jedi, JD. Don't brag about it. Clyden says this. The next test is to regenerate limbs. Do you have a stick to bite on? Clyde, I think it's very obvious that Lincoln does not regenerate limbs.
Even JD and Faria are like, what the hell do you think you're doing? Lincoln then says that it's pretty obvious that he's not an alien. Okay, at least some of the characters have a little bit of awareness. The gang then goes back to Lincoln's room to talk to Luann. Luann then says she doesn't remember much, but she and the other sisters are excited to finally have a brother. She then goes on to say that they thought Lincoln was going to be a girl. Lincoln gets confused and Luann explains that their parents already decorated his room for one. Luann also says that the older sisters and her thought they brought home the wrong baby. Most of the older sisters' stories don't make sense, but I can understand that they are misremembering certain details. That is probably what is happening. Anyway, Lincoln and Clyde come to a wild conclusion that his parents aren't his biological parents. JD suspects that Rita and Lynn Sr. did a kidnapping that goes into the description about Michigan law and kidnapping. Lenny says it sounds too extreme for their parents to do. Facts. She's saying facts. That is why I claim her to be the straight man. Lincoln and the gang go downstairs to the computer. The gang checks on the computer for Lincoln's birth records but don't find them. Instead of calling it quits, the gang decides to stalk families who were in the hospital's birth records. However, their luck doesn't do that much for them until they find a perfect candidate at a house with cacti on their lawn. Lincoln says that with Lori's hair, a guitar like Luna's, and eats like Lynn, she has to be allowed. Faria and Laney are surprised at this revelation, but Clyde says that they don't know that. Lincoln says that he'll probably have to move and start his life over. Clyde panics about this possibility, but Faria snaps him out of it.
Lincoln then says, now I have some choice words for my so-called parents. Okay, Lincoln, you're jumping to conclusions here. And I understand your frustration, okay?
Lincoln confronts his parents with the discovery he has found, but his parents start laughing. Lincoln says what's funny, and the parents stop laughing. They do confirm that he's their son, so the kidnapping story was wrong. The real story is that Vanzilla broke down on the highway while Lynn Sr. was driving Rita to the hospital, and then a black limo pulled up, revealing that it was the President and the First Lady. The President and First Lady let them ride in the limo, but Lincoln turned out to be impatient, so the President was going to deliver him. But the President fainted and the First Lady took over and delivered Lincoln. The reason why Rita and Lynn Sr. couldn't tell him was because the President was headed to a safe house in Royal Woods. Also, they had to sign an NDA, or a non-disclosure agreement. Makes sense, I guess. The gang then understands why they couldn't tell, or they could have gotten sued. Lincoln then asks questions about what the older sister said, and the parents give an answer for every single question. Lynn Sr. then goes to retrieve a suitcase and opens it, revealing a blanket with the presidential seal on it. Clyde says to Lincoln that he can't wait to tell the story to the class, but the parents remind him that they can't. Lincoln says that he understands, and Lincoln and his parents hug it out. Clyde sneezes on the blanket in the original episode, but in Revamped, JD switches it with a handkerchief. Lynn Sr. says that the blanket is a part of American history. Back in Lincoln's room, the gang read comic books, but Lincoln and Clyde jump to conclusions about Lincoln's white hair and decide to do another field test. In the original episode, it just cuts to black, but Lenny says, "Here we go again," ending the chapter. This chapter is just okay. It doesn't really affect the story. JD butts in a little too much, but as we go on deeper into this fanfiction, we'll see it more. Loud House Revamped so far is okay, and the lunacy hasn't even hit us yet. Maybe it is because of me not noticing things or me oversimplifying. However, in the next video of this series, we will start with Chapter 11, For All in the Family. One of the most infamous Loud House episodes. Oh, this will be a doozy.